Well, happy Saturday, folks. The real Captain Kirk here. We're live from One Bethlehem Plaza here in downtown Bethlehem on a not so bad day. Again, it's going to get up to supposedly 61, but we got a strong, tell by these clouds zipping from the north. Good 15, 25 mile an hour winds out of the north. So got a little bit of wind chill today in the 50s, so not as nice as we had yesterday, but again, 60, we'll take it. Thought we'd ask the robots here today about Hawaii. Again, my old stomping grounds, grew up in Hawaii many, many moons ago. They've obviously, you've seen headline news here with just historic rainfalls with these several now Kona low systems that come out of the south and unusual direction and hit Hawaii. And so big on some rain totals here to year to date. Kona, normally very dry, and only about 4 inches. They're up to 16 inches. Honolulu usually only gets about 16 inches a year. They're at 21 inches. And where I grew up in Kaneohe, 43 inches. I will talk about how that's a little misleading here because Kaneohe's got the Ko'ola Mountains, which can get way more rain than what they've had here. So even Hilo, which is a rainy spot, is up to 52 inches here. So again, off the scale here on a index. And the reason for that is just these Ko'ola Mountains here on the, so Kaneohe, here's where I grew up as a kid many, many moons ago. And again, on the other side, you've got Honolulu, Waikiki, Pearl Harbor areas, very dry. So again, you can go from on this side of the mountains to these 3,000-foot cliffs that go straight up, get 125 plus inches of rain every year, and then down toward Honolulu, 16 inches. So again, just these very tall mountains. Imagine all these crevices here just completely filled with waterfalls here with all these Kona storms. So it's a beautiful scene, but again, catastrophic flooding if you're downstream of these mountains. It's one of the most profound rain shadow effects in the world here. Rain shadow just means that Kaneohe Marine Corps Air Station out toward the beach, Kailua Beach areas, maybe only 16 inches of rain a year. You get towards central Kaneohe, which starts to go up the mountains, maybe 70 inches. And where I lived, at the very base of these mountains, over 125 inches of rain a year. And then on the downside, as the air dries out, as you sink the air, Honolulu only about 16 inches. So again, this is a classic rain shadow effect. And again, this is only over the course of about 5 miles. So again, huge changes across Hawaii here. So again, about 125 inches there in Kaneohe at the base of the mountains and 16 inches in Honolulu. Got one more very wet week coming up here, and then hopefully they're going to dry out. And so cycle here again, La Nina again, all the models are pretty getting strong here that we're going to head for a strong, some potentially very strong. And part of that is just because the equatorial surface temperatures are around 6 Celsius above average. If that percolates to the surface, this would be a super El Nino like we've never seen before. That will cool. We won't see that. But again, you only need to be about 2 degrees Celsius at the surface above average to have a very, very strong El Nino. So again, odds are definitely favoring IRI models down, definitely now leaning strong El Nino here, rapidly developing here too, again, pretty much by summertime. Look at last week, world summer here, ending today, 11 April here again. Here in the U.S., 2.3 warmer than last year, 17th warmest in 41 years. So not the extreme heat that we saw the previous week here, but snowfall down about 39%, 6th least in 41 years, below average, and rainfall down about 33%. So warm, dry, less snow is actually good for overall store traffic here. Again, unfortunately, the Easter weekend here in the East was pretty cool and damp, so that had a slight negative impact again for Easter. But again, this weekend, a little bit better. At least it's drier and not as wet in the East. Severe weather season here again is off to kind of a slow start here. Again, had its moments, but now it's trailing off from last year. 42% down for tornadoes, still a hair above average. Hail down 26% and below average, and wind cases down 34%, still above average. So we got a lot of activity this week. Again, Severe Storms Forecast Center showing day after day after day here, again, about 5+ days here of just the same areas from Texas to Great Lakes of potential severe weather here. So got to watch this week here for sure. So again, this week ending 18 April here, 4.7 warmer than last year's shift. We've gone from now got winter in the west and summer here in the east. It's going to come midweek here. So again, like I said, it's only in the 50s here today in the east and maybe getting up into low 60s tomorrow here, Sunday in the east. And then we will hit the mid 80s. And so we will feel like summer in the time frame here as we get to the midweek period, and then cools off again as we get toward the weekend. So the weekends have not been the brighter spot here. It's been the midweek period here for us. Snowfall down about 23%, 16th least in 41 years, and rainfall way up 199% over last year. Wettest in 6, 13th wettest in 40 years. But again, a conveyor belt from Texas to the Great Lakes, interior New England, and heavy snow and wet weather in the west. Again, haven't seen much of that. They will take it. Look at 6-day snowfall trends. Again, it just shows it pretty much in the higher elevations of the west. So only about 8% of population impacted. And again, this is down from last year by about 44%. and sixth least in 41 years. Looking next week here, again, getting toward the latter half of April here. Again, 0.4 warmer than last year, so just a little bit warmer, warmest in 20 years, fifth warmest in 41. Heat shifts again back toward the Central Plains, still kind of coolish in the Pacific Northwest, and not as extreme here in the Northeast. Snowfall way up, again, 28x over last year's non-existent snow. So again, above average. And a lot of that snow, again, is the north central Rockies, higher elevations. Rainfall down here, down 16%, still 21 first Wettest, so near average rainfall, but again, kind of damp, if you will, from the Texas to interior Northeast. Again, this is, we'll see how much of that can be severe. You typically like to see really cold weather upstream of this event, so we got really hot weather actually in the plains. So this may not be as severe, but again, still potential for some stronger thunderstorm activity. And we just aggregate these world 2-week trends here. So the 12th through the 25th here, same old pattern, cold. It's just amazing how it's kind of a El Nino cycle with the cold in Canada, the wet in Brazil. That's definitely El Nino. And yet here in the States, starting to see the El Nino type rains, but the temperatures, at least for spring here, are more La Nina-like with the warm weather. So again, it's an unusual transition cycle, but that's again kind of expected as we go from weak La Nina to potentially very strong El Nino. And again, we see those continued heavy rains down in Brazil here. Great for their second crops. Again, they're just having one of the wettest conditions in 10 years over the last 4 or 5 months. Again, good for their crops and their second crops in the ground now. And again, that conveyor belt of moisture from the Texas into the Great Lakes, upper plains, upper Midwest, into the Northeast. And again, increasingly wet across the maybe southern Europe. So that, folks, have a great week ahead, and we will talk to you again this time next week.